Hello, my name is Dr. Tim McGee. I am Associate Director for Faculty Development at Rider University, and I am going to share with you some information about the Baccalaureate Honors Program e-portfolio option. So after a little introduction by me, I will be adding some clips that were captured in early December 9th, that include the voices of Dr. Arlene Wilner and a senior BHP student, Jad Nazrani. So the point of this is to provide for those people who were not able to make that meeting some information about the BHP e-portfolio option.
So this would be something you accumulate over time, you add to over time, and you present as your capstone. Again, your choice if you want to do that, instead of doing a more traditional type of capstone project that begins and ends in the senior year. Okay, so that's the general idea. Any questions so far? Okay, you still interested? Okay. All right. So do you want to just talk a little bit about?
Yeah. One of the things is, Arlene and I have been involved in this for several years, and I happen to be someone, I'm not just sort of a fan of portfolios, I'm a portfolio zealot. I think we should have portfolio-based university. You come in day one, start your portfolio, and the whole thing is around portfolios. But that's not the way this institution is structured, and so there's been lots of sort of reasons why this portfolio project hasn't taken off. We're very happy that several students have taken this option, and each one of these people created something that has something good in it and some value. Yet, Dr. Wilner and I are still sort of not satisfied with the portfolios that have been produced for a couple reasons. One has to do with the reflection and the connection making that we're expecting. That has not yet blossomed into the rich thing that we would like. And another has to do with some of the artifacts. So imagine in the ideal scenario, you submit some piece of work to a faculty member, the faculty member gives it back to you, and they've marked little surface issues that need correction, and then give you some substantive commentary on how you might have expanded upon it. And then you actually make those changes, and then you put it into the portfolio, and now it's even more wonderful than it was. But sometimes what happens is, it comes back to you with some letter of the alphabet on it, and not much other guidance. You take that thing and you put it up there, and it turns out there are surface issues. And there are places where it's maybe not as rich as you might have made it. So there's sort of two dimensions in which we're hoping this next round of portfolios, people will get better and better, and it sort of fulfills our hopes and aspirations. So the other thing is, up until now, there has not been a Rider-supported tool for people to make portfolios. So one of the first people, and I cannot demonstrate it from there, but I have another way to demonstrate it, he arrived here already knowing how to make web pages. He not only knew how to make web pages, he knew how to do Flash. And so he made a Flash site with rich multimedia, and he was a voice student, and so he's got audio of him singing, and then he's got these papers that he had written in BHP courses about the composers, etc. So he had all this sort of rich potential that got fulfilled in that portfolio. Some of the other people, they didn't have anything, and so they might have chosen WordPress and made a WordPress site, and that was either good or not so good. Some of them chose Google Sites, and those turned out pretty well, because Google Sites, if you don't know, basically you can just create a free website, and it's really easy, and you pick a template, you pick a design, and you just fill it out. But now, since we have Canvas, every one of you, whether you know it or not, you have the ability to make as many e-portfolios as you want for free in Canvas. It's really easy to use, and you can make them so that they are open to the public or private, and you send somebody the link. So for the first time, you have the ability to build your portfolio without having to worry about what platform will I use and how will I control it. And then the other great thing about e-portfolios in Canvas, some schools buy a portfolio tool, and it's free for you while you're a student, and then you leave, and if you want to keep using it, you've got to be paying like $25 a year to get to it, and your portfolio cannot be exported to anything else. The portfolio tool in Canvas, you push a button, it zips it, and it's completely portable and interoperable. So if you didn't want to keep having it in Canvas, if you wanted to move it to a Google site, you can do that with these. So for the first time, a technological obstacle to portfolios is pretty much gone. But there's still that issue of, we're hoping people will engage in rich reflection, ongoing, rather than, it looks like some people collected stuff for 3.5 years and then put it together and then wrote some stuff in between it, rather than at the end of the first semester, first year, you got some work back, you think about it, and you write some reflections on it then, and that stuff builds and interconnects over your career. That would probably come up with richer connections, better connections.
So, yeah, I would endorse everything Dr. McGee just said, and I would add that, you know, there are probably some kinds of questions that are best reflected upon in the course of compiling the portfolio, others that are best looked at the end of the process. So what you have here in front of you, we haven't actually made that distinction here, but you might infer that for yourselves. Some guidelines, questions to frame your thinking about e-portfolios with the theme of only connect, illustrated as appropriate with artifacts done for courses and or new ones created for the portfolio. And so there's a list of questions here that are meant to stimulate your thinking about how to make connections that you might not have already done, because even in a BHP class where there are connections between two disciplines typically, if you're a freshman you may not have taken it up a level yet, you wouldn't have yet, but you'll see that that's how it works. You still might want to make connections among those classes. Okay, you'll see other connections, meta connections, so to speak, right? And so that's how you want to be thinking. You want to be always thinking on what we call that meta level, that is considering how, not only what am I learning here, but how does it connect to something else that I know? How can it illuminate something else? How can something else that I know illuminate this, right? So that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, as the saying goes, right? And so you can look through this list of questions and see the kinds of things that we want you to think about. Again, these are just suggestions, and you can certainly choose from them and or add others of your own. Okay. If you turn the page over, you'll see that we've given you some guidelines about sort of the minimum number and kinds of things we'd like to see included in the portfolio by the end of the 4 years. So we're saying, and this is a minimum, and there can be more, of course, in any category. At least 12 artifacts representing at least 6 classes, of which 4 must be honors classes. Okay. So, you know, since it is an honors portfolio, we do obviously want you to have a sort of critical mass of material from honors classes. Hopefully more than that, but that would be the minimum. At least 6 well-developed connections based on selections from among questions 1 to 5 on this side, plus ideas of your own. An introductory statement that frames the content and suggested navigation for readers. Okay, so the navigation may be less of an issue in Canvas now because if there's a given structure that's less flexible than some of the other.
Yeah, and I've started a Canvas-y portfolio. So Canvas, one of the things is it's going to always have the left-hand navigation. You've got all these pages. You click on it, it takes you to the page. You can make sub-pages, but it has decided for you what the navigation will be. If we look at some of these samples, we'll see some people chose a top navigation, some people chose a left navigation, some people have sort of effectively used top and left. But what you want to do is have a navigation so that the viewer who comes to it can't get lost and could easily find anything you wanted them to find.
And so finally, this is optional, and you can include artifacts representing links between the curriculum and the co-curriculum, things we were mentioning before, that you might, and activities connected with the curriculum, but not necessarily class, could be internships or other projects, you know, whether working in the Reuters News or Model UN or whatever it might be, working with a laboratory experience that's not necessarily an official part of the class. And what we give you 2 pointers here. Keep in mind that the quality of connections and reflections is what distinguishes the project as worthy of honors credit. And then take advantage of the medium that is multimedia and hyperlink possibilities to enrich the web of connections. So you have a medium that allows you to make all kinds of connections just electronically. And then of course it's your job to make it worth somebody's while to make that electronic connection by giving them something substantive that's interesting once they click there, right? So that's an overview. Maybe, John, do you want to say a few words here about what you've been doing?
Right, so back when I started working on this, I think, was it 2 years ago? No, because I started my sophomore year doing
think it was 3 years ago, you actually started collecting things.
Yeah, I started collecting and working on it my sophomore year, and this past summer is when I started really sort of working on it. I'm using Google Sites for mine. We didn't have Canvas back when I started, so I'm building mine on a Google site. And the site itself, unfortunately, I'm not able to access right now, so I'm going to show you something else that is built exactly the way I built it, because it's the same. I actually built it for Dr. McGee's class for one of my assignments. But so basically what I've done for mine is I started off with a lot of the artifacts that I used in different BHP classes that I used in different in one of my honors contracts and so on. And what I did was write a lot of original material for my portfolio. That's sort of a reflection on how, as Dr. Wilner was saying, it's a reflection on how these concepts that I'm learning are all adding to what the sorts of, as a scientist, the sorts of questions and methods that I want to use to try and